Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Animation Pilgrimage, where we watch every theatrically released animated film in order. I am Sean.
And I'm Tennelle.
And this time we watched Disney's Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
It's a film that has lots of things that happen. Look, I can't keep this up. I don't like this film. I'm just going to put that out here straight off the bat. Straight off the bat. We'll get into the whole film. Don't worry, but I just have to get that off my chest right away so people know I don't care for Alice in Wonderland and Alice in Wonderland styled stories.
Yeah, big disclaimer here. Sean and I are not a fan
Of nonsense.
of...
For nonsense sake.
Shush, shush, shush. Hold on. We're not a fan of Alice in Wonderland-esque stories. I get it. I get why people like them. I've read theories, and like analysis of Lewis Carroll's books. You know, I've heard people talk ad nauseum about Alice in Wonderland and, you know, what it represents and all of the symbolism. And I love symbolism. But I just can't get into Alice in Wonderland stories.
The symbolism is more often than not too vague, and or people interpreting Alice in Wonderland don't seem to do it correctly.
Well, or
They just forget that
worst case,
symbolism is a thing, and they're just doing random shit for random shit.
Right. Or worst case, you have like all these people who've analyzed this work, or they'll be like, this scene represents this, but then another person will be like, no, this scene represents this, and they're two completely different things. And it's like, okay, so that either says that everybody's just talking out of their butt, or
Maybe
the
this
author
meant nothing.
didn't really have a good enough take on what his own story was to represent it. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think Lewis Carroll's a fine writer. It's just, yet again, this is not our kind of thing.
I generally prefer a bit more structure and or consequences to
Consequences
my
to actions.
universe.
Yeah. Well, and I enjoy, like, world building and character arcs and stuff. And if there's anything Alice in Wonderland-esque stories don't do, it's typically character arcs.
Like, the only
drives
character
me
who will
insane.
ever... The only character in an Alice in Wonderland story that will ever get any character arc is Alice.
Yeah.
That's it.
Or your stand-in for Alice.
Or whoever the Alice-like character is. Because they're the only real person in this universe of made-up flim-flam foolery where nothing makes sense and nobody cares and everyone's just a static pile of random. And they are always going to act the exact same no matter what.
Well, that's another thing we don't care for, is the LOL random characters that litter these stories. It's like, alright, cool. There's this, whoa, crazy concept. There's this person or it's an animal that wears a tie. How crazy. But they also like coffee beans, and they, I don't know, play the flute. And, like, that's the character, and that's it. And it's like, alright, cool.
What's the point? Okay, so I think we've mostly covered why we're not a big fan of these things.
Yeah.
So now we're going to actually talk about
The movie.
Disney's Alice in Wonderland. This is 1951?
Yes, 1951.
Okay.
This is actually a pretty good adaptation of Alice in Wonderland.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah, yet again, Disney does a pretty good job with an adaptation here. The only points that it really gets taken away from it is the fact that it takes scenes of stuff that happens in the second book and just puts them in this, because, like, Disney knew that they weren't going to do the second book, but
So
there's
they're just
more...
going to, like, do both.
Yeah, but there's more, like, iconic scenes from the second book, so they just took those and...
Yeah, because there's two books.
Smushed
It's
them together.
Alice in Wonderland and Alice Through the Looking Glass.
Yeah.
I don't know which one's first. Don't really care.
I think it's Alice in Wonderland and then Alice Through the Looking Glass.
Are you sure? I thought it was the other way around.
I don't know. I'm not
Does it matter?
really into Alice, but yeah. Yeah, so plot synopsis. Alice is a young British girl who is being told a history lesson by her older sister. That's her sister, by the way.
Okay, I had no idea. If
Yeah.
it was supposed to be her sister or like just her, I don't know, handmaiden, stewardess,
Yeah.
teacher.
It's her sister, and her cat Dinah is there. And Alice bemoans having to learn history, and if she was in charge of the world, her universe would be full of nonsense and no reason. And then she just kind of wanders off without the teacher, or without her sister noticing.
Yeah, she just walks away, and then, oh look, there's a rabbit wearing a waistcoat. Mm-hmm. What a weird, wacky thing. Let's follow down a rabbit hole and fall.
Yep, so she
And
falls
die.
down the rabbit hole, and then she's in Wonderland, and all these crazy things happen.
Like she's in a room that she grows large and small to get through a door, and then she's in an ocean with people running in circles.
Yeah, she cries and it makes an ocean, and she's suddenly in the ocean because she's small again, and there's people running in circles to try to dry off, but the tide keeps coming in and making them wet again. She meets Tweedledee and Tweedledum, which those two are from the second book, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. And
They tell
her
the
a
story of the Walrus Carpenter, which is just like a complete aside.
A queen aside that has nothing to do with anything else.
And don't tell me it symbolized blah. I don't care. It has nothing to do with anything else. And then she meets the flowers. Oh, she goes to the White Rabbit's house.
Yeah, she goes to White Rabbit's house, gets big. The dodo actually comes back. Shock and surprise. A character comes back from a previous segment. And then she gets big, and then she shrinks back down again. And then she's really small, and then she sings a song with the flowers, who then kick her out because she's a weed.
Yeah, they think she's a weed. She meets the caterpillar.
Yeah, who are you?
Yeah.
And
And then he makes her grow big again.
then we go to the Cheshire Cat is next.
Trying to remember the sequence in which things happen in this movie is a
difficult.
challenge.
I'm pretty sure the Cheshire Cat was next, who then led immediately into the Mad Tea Party with the Mad Hatter, the
March Hare and
March
the
Hare.
Dormouse.
yeah, which then led her back out into the woods where she just wandered around with rando bird creatures for a while, felt sad for herself, and then the Cheshire Cat's like, here's a secret door to the Queen's kingdom, and so then she's there, and then she paints the roses red, and then plays the game of
Plays croquet.
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 Croquet? It's croquet.
I know it is.
Crockett.
Croquet. With the queen,
And then off with her head, and then she gets chased, off with her head, and then they have a trial,
Yes.
which is complete bull honky anyways, because of course it is. And then she gets chased back through all of Wonderland, back to the door that was locked, and then and on the other side is her sleeping because it was all a dream.
Say it with me, everyone.
Oh.
It was all a dream. The best writing trope.
Nothing matters, it's all a dream. And she learned a lesson that you need to be more responsible or not nonsensical or something, which is a good lesson to learn, but bad movie. Or bad story.
Fun fact, I was actually in a stage production of Alice in Wonderland. I was the Dormouse.
Yeah, I was not a part of that. I don't remember if I had already graduated by that point.
No, because I did this in like 5th and 6th grade.
Okay. Then I probably wasn't even involved yet.
Probably not.
But that's perfectly all right with me because it's just like, no.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Let's talk about the filmmaking and stuff.
Okay, well, let's talk about the animators for a bit. Because this is something I can be passionate about, even if I'm not a big fan of the movie. The animation in this film is sometimes really good, and then sometimes just, like, really mediocre.
Yeah.
For Disney. For Disney. I mean, you know. I like Alice in particular, and I think this is because she's such
rotoscoped.
She's very much rotoscoped, and she's such a big character that I think she had 3 supervising animators.
I would not be surprised if that was true.
Because her character just kind of, I don't know, it just doesn't feel quite all there to me, and I feel like if
she's disconnected from the world.
If it was just 1 or 2 people were her supervising animators, I'd feel more connected to her as a character. But there are times, and maybe this is just because it's Alice in Wonderland, but there are times when it goes from scene to scene, and I feel like Alice has made some self-discovery of herself or has decided to react to things differently that I'm just not following along with her. And considering she is supposed to be the character we are following along for this journey,
and we're supposed to relate to on some level.
Yeah, I'm like, I just keep feeling disconnected from who she is. But anyway, her animators were Milt Kahl, Mark Davis, and Ollie Johnston.
Okay.
So, there's that. An interesting thing about the rotoscoping for this movie, I found this neat little model sheet on Deja's blog. And I'll show that right here. But it's, whenever they were using the live action reference, if it's of a close-up shot, they used the size of her head as, like, pretty much go with that. And then make the body smaller. But if it's a wide shot, they would use the size of her body and then make her head larger.
Okay.
Just interesting.
That is interesting. I mean, because she has more cartoony proportions slightly, so the larger head makes sense. I would say that the Mad Tea Party, as dumb as it is probably still very well animated and has a lot of very great visual gags.
Yeah, I'd say
for all
that's
the different tea stuff they're doing and
the Walrus and the Carpenter segment. And then anything to do with
the
Queen of Hearts. Those are my favorite parts of the movie.
I would agree that those are probably the best scenes.
I really like the flowers up until the point where they all turn into assholes. Because that's another problem I have with this movie. Everyone's an asshole.
Yep.
Like, just an irredeemable asshole that it's so hard
it's like,
to
I don't
like any of the characters.
I don't like any of you because you're all terrible people, even if you're not a people.
Yeah, even if you're not a people.
I guess the Cheshire Cat has one cool bit of animation with him.
Oh, like the stripes?
Yeah, like his body disappears except for the stripes, and then the stripes slowly disappear. That looks really cool.
If you can't guess, Ward Kimball did a lot in this film. Like, he was all over the place for this one. He animated the Walrus. I think he was like a supervising director for all of the Walrus and the Carpenter segment. And I'm pretty sure he was the supervising animator on the Cheshire Cat as well. And then I don't know who animated the Mad Hatter and the March Hare, but yeah, they have some of the best animation in the film, and so does the Queen of Hearts. And I know the Queen of Hearts was animated by Frank Thomas. And then a couple of scenes were also animated by Eric Larson, I'm pretty sure. Also, I didn't give Eric Larson his due in the last Disney movie we did. He did The Prince.
Okay.
But yeah, the Queen of Hearts has fantastic animation. She's honestly a joy to watch.
Oh yeah, she's so much fun. She's like the only character that is so asshole-ish she's actually enjoyable.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about her that sets her apart from everyone else. I think it's
like
because she
just
doesn't...
the mannerisms she has.
It's something
in the
about...
animation.
I think it's something along the lines of she never pretends to be a good person.
Yeah, it's like she's bad right from the beginning, so that's what you're ready for.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with a lot of the other characters, you're kind of like led in by this false warmth, and then
their
ugly side comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you can kind of say the same for the Mad Hatter and the March Hare.
Mm-hmm.
Like, their craziness kind of shows right away. Mm-hmm. It's just Alice who isn't quick on the uptake.
Yeah,
She tries reasoning with them at first.
Which doesn't work, because they're mad.
Yeah. Whereas with the Queen, Alice has already been informed by the soldiers that she's bad news. So...
she's more enjoyable then.
Yeah. In general, because I want to think of more positive things to say about this film, the art direction in this film's fantastic.
Oh yeah, they definitely got down a strange, wacky aesthetic that works for the entire film. Mm-hmm. Everything feels cohesive.
Oh yeah, like this is
even when you get to the outside world, like the real world, it feels like the real world compared to the abstract obtruseness of Wonderland.
Right. It's like everything in the real world, they have the rotoscoped characters with fairly realistic proportions.
And hyper-realistic, like,
backgrounds.
Grass and flowers and...
Yeah.
Like, they did, like, this is a real cartoon.
And they're, like, slightly more dulled colors. And then when you get into Wonderland, things get brighter and also darker. Like, the contrast of the film goes way up.
Shrink.
And the use of black in this film is really good. Because it helps just kind of, like, direct your eye to what you should be looking at. And it, like, lends into this is all a dream-esque feeling that the film obviously ends with. Yeah, and goes with. So, yeah, it's like... there are definitely things I can praise about this film, but I don't like the story, I don't like the characters, I don't like this kind of storytelling. And, for the record, it seems most people didn't, because this film did not do that great when it came out.
I'm not surprised. I think I've always found that Alice in Wonderland seems to be a much more niche demographic.
Yeah, I mean...
and then Japan.
Yeah, and then Japan loves Alice.
But, I mean, we'll get into that later when we start getting into the Japanese adaptations of Alice in Wonderland, because they're everywhere.
Yeah, no, I feel like the general public agrees with us in the whole not liking Alice in Wonderland-esque stuff, but then I also feel... I feel bad for people who like Alice in Wonderland, because I think they enjoy it for an intellectual and, like... and for good reasons. Like, I totally get why you guys like this. But then, like, people who don't like Alice in Wonderland are just like... I don't know, there's like two extremes.
They don't like it for purely nonsense reasons.
Yeah.
Which isn't the reason I don't like it.
As much as that doesn't make sense.
As much as it doesn't make sense, it fits perfectly with the theming. Haha! I don't like it because it's nonsense with no...
I think why
no
the general...
payoff.
Yeah, I think why the general public doesn't like Alice is because it is a little too, like, deep.
Yeah, it's just too weird for me
Right.
type of thing, as compared to it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah,
The
see,
general
with
weird-
us, it's
like,
almost
weirdness
like...
does not bother me.
Yeah.
It's just when it doesn't actually make any logical sense.
It's
even
the story structure
Yeah,
itself.
it's the story structure. It's like, even if there's weird stuff going on, as long as it makes sense to some extent within the universe, I'm fine with it. But when nonsense is just allowed to happen because nonsense is allowed, I don't like that.
Yeah.
I hope I'm getting this across correctly.
It's really hard to explain.
It's really hard to explain because we're talking about nonsense here and
Yeah.
trying to differentiate that from just being weird. And many people think those are just kind of like the same thing, but they're not.
They're not. There's a difference between being weird and being nonsensical.
Mm-hmm.
And Alice is definitely more so in the nonsensical than weird. As far as story structure goes.
Yeah.
But the things that are happening are just, like, kind of weird.
Yes. We're complicating things.
I mean, and that's one reason why I like the Walrus and the Carpenter segment, is because it's an actual story.
It's an actual story. Even if the payoff for it is nothing, it's
in the context of all of Alice in Wonderland.
in the context of all of Alice in Wonderland.
The story itself, the segment itself, has payoff.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the Walrus and the Carpenter because it's a fully complete story. It's just a short that they threw in here.
Honestly, yeah. It's like, all right, that is a story with a clear beginning, middle, and end.
And like you can tell what's going on is the rich guy is manipulating the poor guy,
the poor working class,
or the middle class specifically. Yeah. The rich guy is manipulating the middle class to exploit the poor. It's very clear what's going on here.
Yeah. It's like, all right, cool, a story, great. Now we gotta go back to Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's...
I don't know if I can talk about this much more. I know you guys were probably expecting a lot more from us from a Disney film. Because we normally talk
there honestly
a really long time.
There's honestly not a whole lot of information on this one because it's one of the lesser well-performed films. Like, because it didn't do all that well, there's not much to say. I guess one thing to say is that obviously, even though this film did not do that well when it first came out, by the time it was re-released in the 60s and 70s, this film gained quite a large cult following, and I bet you can guess why.
Everybody was high.
Well, see, and that's the funny thing, too, is people then ask the 9 old men, like, oh, what kind of drugs did you take to make this film? And they're like, we didn't. We're just creative. Like, it's really not that crazy, guys.
Yeah.
Although there are a few animators who, and I forget who,
do admit to doing some recreational drugs.
Yeah, they do admit to doing some drugs. But I don't think it was any of the 9 old men. It was some of the, like, older guard or something like that.
Okay.
But yeah.
That's interesting. All right, yeah, I think that's
pretty much it.
That's gonna be it. Next up on Animation Pilgrimage, we're actually going with our very first Christmas film. It's The Night Before Christmas from the Soviet Union, also in 1951.
Yay, Russia!
Yay! Also Christmas.
Anyway, we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Yes, painting the roses red.
Not pink, not green,
Not aquamarine.
we're painting the roses red.